Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday. I hope you all are doing well. It is me, Victoria Baxter of the Saved and Single Ministry and of New Thing Life Coaching. If you are tuning in for the first time, then maybe you don't know that it's time for the Sassy Saturday special. This is what I do every Saturday, just a way for me to provide a little bit of insight on some type of topic or whatever else the case might be for the single Christian ladies. You can learn more about the ministry at www.thejalministry.com and clicking on Saved and Single. As far as coaching is concerned, I always say that I'm the LSDR coach. I'm a certified life, singles, dating, and relationship coach for primarily Christian women. You can learn more about me in the coaching business at www.newthinglifecoaching.com. I like to do group coachings, of course, the blogs and stuff like that, but I do individual sessions as well for people that are trying to learn how to date. Some of you are the clients for my Getting It On Dating experiment. We've been, again, looking at how to date and what courting is and what dating is and all that other good stuff from the Christian perspective, but in the 21st century. So I help people as far as dating, just being content, being single, healing, discovering their purpose, those who just feel stuck or stagnant in any part of their life right now. And I also do relationship coaching as an enlightened relationship workshop facilitator. So that's just a little bit about me, just to kind of go ahead and put that introduction out there for the newbies on Facebook, the page, the group, the YouTube channel, the podcast, all the different channels that I got for the podcast going as well. So to wrap up this month, for the month of March, I have been focusing on healing, and I started off, I think it was what was it, Lies from the Mother, and then I went to But My Daddy. We were kind of looking at mama issues and daddy issues and how a lot of those things really end up affecting us over time. We think that we've maybe healed from something, or maybe not even a mommy or daddy issue. Maybe it could also be something like as I've said before, I know that some people have maybe been molested or violated or betrayed just in some type of way, and we end up taking all of these things with us and into our relationships. And last weekend I even spoke about why your past isn't really the past, because if it's something that you have not healed from, then you're still dealing with it right now. I've talked before about how with coaching I use the what I call the H3 approach, and that's household habits in heaven. And I always start with household because I like to ask people, and asking women, what did you learn from your mom? What didn't you learn from your mom? What did your daddy teach you, or show you, and trying to figure out what happened in the house and how it shaped you and how it played a part into who you are right now. Because a lot of those things that we saw in the household, they turn into habits, and we take a lot of those habits with us when we are dating, in relationships, some of us even marriages and stuff like that. So we can't really say that something is the past if we are still living in it. So that's what we kind of focused on for the past 3 weeks, and we're gearing up for, in a couple of hours, I will actually be doing the Be Healed webinar, and I'm excited to spend time with a couple of you that have already signed up for it. So it starts at noon Eastern Standard Time. You still have time. If you are listening to this right now, you still have time to catch it. If you hear this later, it should already then be on the website, or it will be at some point for to still register to catch it on demand. But if you go to bit.ly/be restored, you'll be able to register for the webinar. I mean, it's $10, but I always charge a registration. But it's really, again, providing tips and tools and stuff like that, and talking about why healing is so important. And I'm pretty sure there are a lot of things that you thought that you've healed from, just because you're living and you're still moving on with your life. You're not even realizing that certain things are still affecting you. So yeah, join me for the Be Healed webinar. For those of you that have already registered, I'm excited, and I will see you shortly. But what I wanted to talk about today, as I went through mommy issues, daddy issues, the past, and stuff like that, I wanted to talk about just God and the single Christian woman. And I say that because I remember a time when I was actually in a relationship, and I was in a relationship with my children's father. And again, we were in a relationship, we were living together, we'd already had 2 kids together. And some of you have heard this story before, but I ended up getting a message from someone. It was like my sister's best friend, someone I didn't really talk to or communicate that often, but it was like late in the midnight hour. But she had ended up sending me, I don't remember if it was a text message or an email, but it was just saying, hey, God said, to let you know, let me be your husband first. And I was like, Yeah, okay, whatever that's supposed to mean. And it was something that never really registered with me. I couldn't understand where that was coming from. And mind you, of course, I was in my early 20s. I was in a relationship with the man that I thought I was going to marry. Obviously, we were having sex. We had 2 children together, and we were still having sex even after the children were born. But I couldn't figure out, like where that was coming from. So for me, I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. Sounds good. Sure, sure thing. As time went on and as that relationship, of course, it eventually ended and him and I are no longer together, and, after being off and on for about 10 years, I realized that God had already kind of started speaking to me about some things. And what I realized was also that I'd already, I've told you all that he had been kind of talking to me and convicting me a little bit as far as sexual sin and sexual immorality. And back in 2010 is when that all started. Now, mind you, one thing I always say as far as my children's father and I, it seems like God was always able to get through to me a little bit more when me and this man were separated. Because when he had actually been in jail for 6 months, that is when I had given my life to Christ and gotten saved. So then when he and I then got back together, and then we had actually separated again after, like, we broke up and we were not living together back in 2010. And that's when God was really calling me to go deeper with him. And that's when he was also, already starting to speak to me as far as sexual sin and everything was concerned. Well, lo and behold, me and him, we ended up getting back together in 2011. But I realized that there were times I really wasn't wanting to have sex with him because I was already starting to feel that guilt and that conviction, because I knew what it was that God had previously spoken to me about. So there were times that I would, lie and say that I had a headache, or I pretended to be asleep, and I did all that. But there were times that, that I did still engage and actually have sex with him. But I always had that guilt because I knew that God wanted more for me. And I knew that I was settling at that point and that God was trying to get me away from that. So when he and I, we eventually broke up, and I figured, okay, good, cool. Now I can actually be abstinent and live the way that God is calling me to. Well, after a while, I started dating, and stuff like that. And I've shared a lot of my horror stories as far as dating and sometimes, having sex or whatever with different men through that period of dating after my ex and I broke up, and I realized that I was finally ready to start dating. So again, I would always try. I knew that I wanted to be abstinent. I knew that that was something that God was speaking to me about. But for me, I still had that mindset that, hey, I think at that point I was like, it's 2015, it's 2016. There's not a man that is going to wait. There's not a man that is going to decide he is not going to have sex. But meanwhile, all along in my head, I was also hearing, let me be your husband first. And now, mind you, this is the same thing that someone had already said to me maybe back in like 2007 or 2008. But of course, I couldn't receive it at that time. And now here it is. God is bringing it to me all along, like all over again. We always know that it just takes a seed to kind of get something planted. And we know that it takes one person to plant it, somebody else to water it, but seeds are always being planted. It depends on what type of soil the seed is being planted in. So she planted the seed. It just took a while for it to actually sprout forth. So when I started listening to that more and more, then I was thinking, well, a man is not going to want to be my husband if I don't have sex. There's not a man that, and that's truly what I was thinking at that time. I was like, I know that I want a husband. So God was letting me know that stop having sex with men that aren't your husband. Let me be your husband first. But truth moment, I also had men that were helping me out financially, that were doing different things for me. And I've told you before, that's always been my areas of struggle, men and money. So of course, if I'm wanting love and struggling financially, and I now have a man that's saying, I will help you financially, then okay, then we can just do that. And of course, it was never like no prostitution type thing. It was never, hey, I'll help you as long as you have sex with me. But again, sometimes I was having sex with them, so they were cool with giving me money. There were times that they gave me money. And so for me, it was like, oh, okay, I'll have sex with him. He likes me and we're kicking it and it's cool and whatever else. So maybe you might consider that prostitution, but it's not what I was doing. But still, I was willing to kind of do that exchange sometimes because men were also meeting my financial needs. And all I knew was that I was a single parent that was struggling at times. So again, wanting love, wanting to be okay financially, knowing, again, the roles of a husband is to be a provider, a protector, and to love the woman. So in my mind, it's like, well, I need to be provided for and I want love. Even though they might not actually be my actual husband, I still gotta, make it do what it do. And God was saying, let me be your husband first. You are not ready for an earthly husband until you realize that I am your first husband. And it sounded weird, but he kept on saying it to me over and over and over again. And finally, I made that decision to give up sex. And it's at this point, it's been like going on 2.5 years that I have been abstinent, and realizing that God truly can be the best husband if we allow him to be. A lot of us, we get frustrated with being single because it's things that we are wanting from a man. We're not thinking about what we actually offer to a man and what we can do for a man and what type of wife we could be. Let's be honest. A lot of us are thinking that we're tired of doing it alone. We want help financially. We want to have sex. We want to travel. We want companionship and all those other good things. And nothing is wrong with those things. But if that is the reason why you desire to get married, you've got some other issues you need to worry about. You've got some other things that you need to actually address at this time. And once I finally gave up sex, I was able to see things a lot more clearly. It's funny how when you give up sex, your discernment actually heightens. You actually have a better connection with God. You actually get more wisdom and insight and clarity, and you're more at peace, and you can rest better and so many different things when that is off the table. And that's exactly what happened once I eliminated it. And it also caused me to eliminate certain men who were only wanting sex, and those men who were like, oh, I can't wait until until I get married to have sex. I was like, okay, cool. That just means you're not my husband. And I intentionally set out to make God my husband. And I knew that about maybe a month or two after I actually chose to be abstinent, I did go and I bought my ring. And yeah, I always say before, well, I finally switched the fingers, but I know it looks a little bit like, I don't know if you can really see it. It looks a little bit like an engagement ring, and I would wear it on that finger. And when people would compliment, me on it or bring it up, I would always talk about this is my I'm married to Jesus ring. And I had no problem saying that Jesus was my husband, because I knew during that time I had to be intentional about focusing on God. I had to be intentional about my walk with Christ, because I had to realize that as I started intentionally dating God, that he was showing me how I always pretty much put men before him, how I made men my God, how I made an idol out of the men that I was dating, and how out of the possible and potential relationships that we could have, and how I would always put God on the back burner once I started dating a guy. And God was letting me know, I am a jealous God, and I am not going to go for that. I need you to be this excited about my love. I need you to be this focused on my love and my attention and my provision. And God was letting me know, I can provide for you better than any earthly man ever can. I can protect you better than any earthly man ever can. You really want love and you barely love yourself. Experience my love and see that I can love you better than any earthly man ever can. So I had to wrap my head around that, and it wasn't easy. And a lot of us, if we're honest, we go around professing how much God loves us and Jesus loves me. This I know, for the Bible tells me so. But how many of you truly understand the depths of God's love? How many of you really understand how much he loves you, how you were created on purpose, for a purpose, by purpose, like on purpose, like you are supposed to be here. God is saying the very hairs on your head are numbered. Before I knew you, before I even formed you in your mother's womb, I already knew who I called you to be. I already knew who I created you to be. You are beautiful. You are worthy. All of these other different things that God is saying about us. And a lot of times we profess it. We make a Facebook post out of it. We'll put a meme up on Instagram. But it's like we're really trying to convince others while we're also trying to convince ourselves. But I think some of us just really don't understand how much he delights in us and how much he loves us. And what I realize as I continue to coach single Christian women is that a lot of the women who really, really, really want to meet someone, the women that really want to be dating or in a relationship or married, it's because they really just want love. And you can't be that desperate for somebody else's love, because if you are, first of all, it means you have not yet experienced God's love and you barely love yourself. And the last thing you should ever want to do is be so desperate for somebody else's love, because that means your validation and everything else is going to be tied up inside of this man. So I'm not going to take much longer. I'm going to really just at this point close this up by saying, I want you to be intentional about healing from your past and thinking about what things that you saw, didn't see, what things that you heard or didn't hear, what type of things are affecting you right now. What type of things from your household, from your childhood, from your past ended up turning into habits that you can't seem to break? What type of patterns might you be seeing with men that you have dated? Look at the last man that you either dated, had sex with, or you were in a relationship with. And then go to the guy before that and the guy before that and just keep going back and looking to see, is there a pattern? Why did you let that man stay? Why did you want him? What did he tell you? What did he offer you? What is it that you liked, loved, and wanted about him? What was it that made you think that you actually needed him? Be intentional as you think about those things, because a lot of our issues and a lot of our desires, a lot of our wants, a lot of these things really do tie into healing. And maybe not healing, because not everyone is broken or damaged or whatever else. Some of us, the issue is just we just have not experienced God's love. We're so busy wanting an earthly husband that we have not allowed him to be our husband first. You've got to be intentional about your time with God. You've got to want God more than you want anything else. Please let that resonate. Let that sizzle in your spirit for the rest of the day, for the rest of the weekend. Just think about it, okay? Cool. All right. Well, that is all that I really wanted to talk about. Let God be your husband first. And I will see a couple of you soon for the webinar. Again, connect with me, thejalministry.com. Click on Saved and Single. You can subscribe. You can buy my book, Debunking the Fairy Tale of Boaz. I think it's still 20% off through Sunday at midnight Eastern Standard Time. When you actually add the book to your cart, if you enter the coupon code, I think it's Boaz for SAS, either Boaz for SAS or SAS for Boaz, one of the two. But yeah, SAS. But when you enter that, you do get 20% off, and it's free shipping. And that's just me celebrating because I'm excited, because I've now had the third person that has sent me a picture of my book next to the book The Wait with Megan Good and Devon Franklin. And that book is absolutely amazing that they wrote. I've read it. I've got writings and highlighter marks, everything. So to even see people putting my book in that same category, that just it does something to me. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I know that the book that I wrote was a good book. I know that I did my part and I did what it was that God wanted me to do. But The Wait is amazing. And I don't know, maybe for me it's because of who wrote the book, and I don't know, maybe it's a little bit longer than my book or whatever. I don't know, maybe I'm kind of doing my own little comparison, but either way, I'm tooting my own horn a little bit. So the book is right now 20% off through tomorrow. It's not too late to sign up for the Healed webinar. Getting it on, if you still want to, get your feet wet as far as dating is concerned, I got 3 different options. As far as dating coaching is concerned, I know there's the ebook, The Rules of Dating Coaching, the Relationship Readiness Assessment. You can also get a coaching with me to go over your results from your Relationship Readiness Assessment. And for those who are saying, hey, I'm ready to start dating and whatever else, but I need you to kind of guide me through this with some one-on-one interaction, there's an option for you too. And it's been awesome talking to you ladies and getting it on as far as the dating and everything else is concerned. So you can learn more about that at newthinglifecoaching.com. And I think if you actually click on book, you will see it up there at the top. I think there's a link for that also. bit.ly/dating exp. And you can get more information about it there. So, but that's all I have for you all. God bless you all. I love you all. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and I will see some of you soon. Bye-bye.